Wednesday. Happy Wine Wednesday, Carl Boucher.
Here you go. Here we are. Cheers. Cheers to you, Mira Boucher. Happy Wine Wednesday. Welcome, Carl's Wine Club members, Canadian wine lovers, all of you across the country. Another beautiful summer day here in the Okanagan. Yes, it is Wednesday. It is 5 o'clock Pacific time, and we are enjoying a glass of Pinot Noir from Locust Lane Winery because it's Locust Lane week here at Carl's Wine Club. And yeah, we're gonna have a special guest that we're gonna bring in. We're gonna bring in a couple minute time. But I want to wish everyone in the Similkameen Valley good luck, and just to tell everyone that our thoughts are and our hearts are with them, and hopefully everyone is safe in this just like ever growing Keremeos Creek wildfire. So
we've been following the posts from Corselet's. It's one of our favorite wineries down in near Keremeos, and they're not affected, but the roads coming through their area are kind of being affected. So that's kind of scary, but we're just praying that it's going to rain quite a bit tomorrow and it will help a lot.
There you go, because we're having a real break here on the high heat. We had 3 weeks of 34 to 40 degrees. This week is a little bit milder, around the 28 to 32, so we don't have the same height. The house has freshed up a little bit. It's not as hot in the house. Easier to preserve the wine at a proper temperature.
Yes, that's the main concern. Like, we're like sweating buckets, but we're checking the temperature in the wine room, and we're like, oh, wine's still okay. The wine's still okay.
Not as crazy in the last couple of weeks for us, touring and seeing wineries left and right, like 3, 4, 5 different every week. So this last week was a little more, a little bit slower. We still had a great time at Bonamici in Okanagan Falls. Great meetings with Mario, the owner. It was fantastic. We're going to keep you in the loop with that. We'll debrief a little bit more after our interview coming up, because, again, it's Locust Lane week here, and we have an outstanding lineup. We've been chatting with David Gimbrell and Jeff, the winemaker, for a while now. We even had the chance to meet when we were in Niagara, and
actually came to the members reunion. So some of you guys, if you stop by the members reunion, you might have met them.
There you go. And we've been tasting their wines since now almost like February, and we were excited to showcase what they do to our members across the country, because they have a pretty cool portfolio. They have great diversity in their portfolio, but they also have outstanding value. So it's one of the things that we're discovering more and more from some of the outstanding players from Niagara and Ontario, is the price point that we can offer are absolutely fantastic. And that's what we have here this week with Locust Lane. Some wine that, like, I have to say, I have never tasted a 1495 Gewürztraminer with that much depth and that much complexity. So one of my very favorite. This is on the list for the top value wine of the year. No doubt about that. So so some members are tuning in here. John Lewis is on here. John from Ontario. Our friend Pierre Nollet de Québec. Un beau bonjour en français à tous nos membres francophones, que ce soit les gens du Québec, les gens du Nouveau-Brunswick, du Manitoba, tous nos membres francophones. Un beau bonjour à tout le monde. C'est la semaine de Locust Lane. Un petit vignoble absolument fantastique de Beamsville en Ontario, qui font des vins d'une valeur incroyable, des vins, des chardonnays, des gewürztraminer à 15 $, incluant les taxes. So, aujourd'hui, on va parler avec Jeff Hines, qui est le winemaker. Qui est dans la green room présentement. On l'amène à l'écran très bientôt. Toi, un beau bonjour en français maman qui nous écoute de l'Alaska aujourd'hui, nos chums du Québec, Pierre, Jean-Denis, puis tous nos membres, un gros bonjour. Here you go.
Hey, I wanted to say before we introduce Jeff, hey, Daryl, your rosés are arriving tomorrow. I'm going to send you the tracking number. The UPS guy didn't drop them off on time last night, but they're safe. They were kept in a cool office.
Yes, in the cool office. I was there again today, and he confirmed that the box went out last night, this afternoon.
This afternoon, yeah. So is it Jeff Innes or Jeff Ines? Because you say Ines, and I was like,
I don't know. I always massacre the people's names, so I have to apologize.
I know, right? I guess he'll fix it in a second. So this is Jeff, who is a winemaker at Locust Lane, and Jeff, who's coming on. I mean, we'll hear all about his story, but I think he's been around as a winemaker in Niagara for over 20 years, which is really exciting. So can't wait to meet him.
Been around the block, our friend Jeff. Jeff, welcome. Jeff, before we start, let's clean up the laundry here. I think I completely massacred your name, so please tell me how I pronounce your last name, Jeff.
My last name is pronounced Innes, but it's all good.
There you go. So let's start with an apology, and
no apologies.
Let's start on the right foot.
All good.
Oh, but thanks for joining us, Jeff. It's greatly appreciated. We were extremely excited to have you on because, you're taking over a new project, and the potential is absolutely outstanding out there. And we've been tasting your wines for over 6 months now. We love the potential of Locust Lane. So tell us a little bit about the portfolio of your wine. And we'll start different. Let's start all over again.
No worries.
How can you make a $14.95 wine that good, for God's sake? I can't wrap my head around that. It's simple. We don't see that here. We don't see that here in BC. A Gewürztraminer for $14.95 with that depth and complexity, I have a hard time.
Including tax.
Including tax, yes. Well, you know what? Gewürztraminer is one of my favorite varieties to actually produce. I just love making it, and we're kind of in Ontario here. We have so many other influences with international markets and whatnot, much like they do in Vancouver. And so I just want everybody to taste the wine and enjoy the wine. And when you really break down the numbers at $14.95, it's grown basically less than a kilometer away from the winery, and so it's not like we have to truck it that far. And it's just a matter of getting the wine, the style we want, out to the public, because if it was any more expensive, people wouldn't buy it, because let's be honest, nobody can really say Gewürztraminer. So they don't buy it. And so, you know what? We want to make it approachable. We want to take the stigma away from the fact that people can't pronounce it, for them to enjoy it. And when we taste it on the tasting bar, people like, wow, this is amazing. I don't know what it is, but it's great. They call it the G wine, G-spot wine, whatever you want to call it. That's what they do. And it's just the wine that people have fun with. I always have fun making it. And so it's just one of the wines that I always make sure that it's available at a lower cost than what we do with everything else. So Gewürztraminer is just a fun wine we have fun with here at Locust Lane.
Okay, so we're going to get back to this a little later, because let's talk a little bit more about the project. Let's talk about Locust Lane. Let's talk about the location. Jeff, you guys are on the Beamsville Bench. Is it correct?
Yes.
So
our sub-appellation is Beamsville Bench.
So it's one of the most sought-after appellation in Niagara. It's the center of some of the place of some of the best wineries in Niagara. So you guys have a total prime location. So tell us a little bit about how Locust Lane came alive, and how did you got on board with Locust Lane?
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but I'll keep it kind of short. I came up to this property in the early 90s when it was Walter's Estate Winery, and I couldn't believe the view that they had. I was working at Vineland Estates at the time, and we came up just to help him out with something. And then then Walter sold, it became Eastel, and then it became Mike Weir, and that's when I became employed on the property. And so when when Mike Weir shut down and the new ownership group came in place, I was a small part of the new ownership group, which was a fun thing to do because now you're part of an ownership group, which it was fun at the time. Now, well, it's during a pandemic, it's not the greatest, but it's it's still, myself and the other owners have a blast. And so we wanted to make this, when the guys came in and bought it, it was more of a sense of place, and they just fell in love with the property, and we wanted to make it a destination. And so Locust Lane, the name, comes from the street that we're on. We are on Locust Lane. Our two white blends, our white blend and our red blend are 4041 white and 4041 red. That's the address. Everything else, we have locust trees on the property. And so it's just, this whole property just breeds Locust Lane, not the bug, but the tree. And so we're embracing the property, and we love the fact that we can, and next year we're going to be doing glamping. So we're going to have like glamorous camping out the back. We were right on the Bruce Trail in Ontario. For those of you all on the other side of Canada, we are right on what's called the Bruce Trail, which goes from the Niagara Gorge up to Tobermory in Northern Ontario. Our driveway and part of our vineyard is on the Bruce Trail. And so we like to keep the fact that we are very environmental friendly, and we are part of the environment. And it's just, we wanted to keep it something that was more, like I said, a sense of place. So Locust Lane was what we wanted to call it. And we spent weeks trying to come up with a name for the winery, and we came up with Locust Lane. And as you know, on some of our bottles, everything's a thumbprint. I'd like to say the thumbprint is mine, but I'm pretty sure it's probably the designer of the label who used his own thumbprint to do it. But we have a thumbprint as our identity because, again, a thumbprint is an identity. And so it's our sense of place, so that's why we have that. And so this is how Locust Lane was born, and we're just going to build it up from there.
Jeff, now it makes so much sense. I love these stories, and I know that the members love to connect with these kind of stories. And I love it. I love it. All about the place. So talking about the place, tell us about your vineyard, because okay, you guys have the tasting bar, you have the production facility, but you're sitting on how many acres of vines where you're at?
Right now, our vineyard plantings is about 15 acres. We have Riesling, we have Cabernet Franc, we have Chardonnay, and we have Merlot. So our Riesling goes into our sparkling Riesling. That one right there. That, yeah. Our Merlot goes into our white Merlot, and our Chardonnay and Cab Franc go into our Cab Merlot blends, or our Chardonnay, our unoaked Chardonnay. I use unoaked Chardonnay from the bench, whether it be from our vineyard and a blend from another vineyard just up the street for our unoaked, because I like the minerality, I like the freshness that it gives. Cab Franc goes into our Cab Merlot because I love the fruitiness it brings to our Cab Merlot. And then for our bigger reds, I source them from another vineyard, Niagara-on-the-Lake area. So
good. So 15 acres of vines. How old the vines are? Is it something like older vines? Because the way you're talking here, I have a feeling that it's a little bit younger vines, using your Merlot for the white Merlot and all that. So how old the vines are?
Well, unfortunately, the vines are, like, our Riesling vines are about 38 years old. They were planted by the Walters family, and our rows, if anybody knows vine spacing, instead of the usual 8x4 vine spacing, we have one block of our vineyard that's almost 13 feet wide by 4 feet, because the width of the tractor was 13 feet when they planted it. So that's why they're a little wider than what we would like. And for the Merlot, we actually found that the citrusy aspect of the Merlot bode very well for a very fresh, very fruity white Merlot rather than a full-bodied, rich Merlot. So we use what we have, and we we kind of manipulate the wines to a small degree because I don't like to manipulate the wines too much. And I like to have the wines and the grapes show exactly what they're going to do. And the first year we picked the fruit for the white Merlot, it was just so fruity, so fresh, so clean. And so it just screamed a white Merlot. So that's kind of what we did. And it was one of those, as we call them here at the winery, I'm a sports guy, so everything's a game time decision. We call it crush pad decisions. So
I love it. I love the game time decision. What we're gonna,
yes.
yeah, always, it's always about what's facing us. Like, right? Let's make the plan about exactly what we're facing. And in your case, it's Mother Nature. Every year, you gotta have a different game plan because Mother Nature, it's giving you something different. So how about 2020? The 2021 vintage gave you something pretty unique, with a very wet fall, a great growing season. I was there in early September. Everyone was raving about the numbers, and boom, shit hit the fan. And
do you see me crying right now? No, 2021's where, you know what, it was a good thing we were in a good position to do all of my Pinot Noir. Either went to sparkling rosé or rosé, so that really helped. And again, it's crush pad decision. You're not going to make the big wines out of 2021. So my biggest thing in my whole life, and I learned from amazing winemakers in my day, and I've had the luxury to work under two amazing winemakers in my life. And the one thing they taught me was don't try and make something out of the wine that it's not. And so a winemaker can manipulate the wine as much as we can, but then you know what? You're not fooling anybody. Let the wine happen and let the wine show what it's going to do. And then you can maneuver it either way, a little bit here, a little bit there. But for the most part, you know what? Don't try and make it something that it's not. And so I've had the luxury of working I've just finished. Last 2021 was my 30th vintage. So I was here when we did 96 and 2006, probably the two worst vintages in Ontario. And so, you know what? You learn a lot in the bad vintages when you can kind of figure out how to fix them and how to make them, at least, because as winemakers, we're still farmers, and it doesn't matter how much wine we bring in that year, we still got to make wine that sells. If it's bad wine, it's not going to sell. And so that's where we have to step up our game. In a good year, anybody can make good wine. It's a matter of what you do in the difficult years. And like I said, I've had the pleasure to learn from other winemakers to do that. So I'm excited to keep going for another 30 more years.
And you know what's exciting? Because with your portfolio, when we're talking about bigger wines and better vintage, I'm tasting some 2019 here. So that means that 2020 is right around the corner. You guys are going to release the 2020. If you follow the Ontario wine industry a little bit, because we have members from all over the country, a good chunk of our members are in Western Canada. But I think we've been talking a lot about the 2020 vintage in Ontario. Yes. Some call it the vintage of the century. Some call it the best vintage ever. So everyone has a little different, positioning for the vintage, but we all agree that it was a darn good vintage. So your 2020s are coming soon, I guess.
They're coming very soon. My Pinot Noir. I'm just, as with everything in the world today, supply chain has been a bit of an issue. I've got my 2020 Pinot Noir still resting in barrel, waiting to come out. It needs to come out. I'm trying to get it to wake up, and it's ready to do a wake, but I don't want to wake it up until I have to put it in bottle. And I don't have the bottles just quite yet. So once I get the bottles, then that Pinot Noir is going to wake up, and it's going to be incredible. I have a Shiraz that is just mind-boggling. It's the first Shiraz I've ever made in my life. And I guess I picked a good vintage to start making Shiraz because it was incredible. And then our 2020 Merlot, which is amazing. John, no, it's not bottled yet. I'm waiting on glass to get it bottled. I'm just seeing things pop up on the screen.
Yeah, so John is
you know what? There's like a 30-second lag, so I think he was asking that right as you explained it. But
okay.
Such a tricky
That's good to know.
time.
I'm new to this TV, the Zoom thing. So,
Yeah, no, it's great.
but no, it's our 2020s are huge. I've got my 2020 Merlot is still sitting in barrel, and it still needs more time. It's just not big. And
That's all.
But I personally think, for me, in my career, I'm going to say 2012 was probably the best vintage I've ever been a part of.
Okay, so we'll put 2012 just a little ahead of 2020.
A little bit, yeah. Well, we don't know what 2020s are how they're gonna age or how they're gonna. We don't know that yet, and that could make a difference. And that's, I had a 2012. Oh, they moved it. I had a 2012 wine that I made on Friday, and I was amazed that it was still holding up.
Wow.
And it was 10 years old.
Hey, Carl, remember that 2012 Riesling we had from Suan?
Yes, absolutely. 2011, actually.
Was it 11?
That was 11. It was 11.
Okay.
08, 11, and 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still have to find a 2012 somewhere then. While we were out there, Jeff, we tried a 1999, Carl. You're always so good at remembering these things.
1899 Pilateri Cap Franc.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the story. We're at Hillfire at the bottle shop with Marcel, and we had a bunch of people with us. And anyway, Marcel pulled up. He said, I brought that out of my cellar. I highly doubt that it's going to be any good, but let's see if it holds up just even a tiny bit. I look at the bottle. I was like, 99. Come on, bud. I think that you're shooting for the star, and we might all be disappointed. I'm not shitting you, Jeff. I rarely tasted a bottle of Canadian wine who had held that perfectly. This 99 Pilateri Cap Franc was an absolute gem. One of the top bottles that I've tasted in years. It was amazing. Amazing.
Nice. And that's the thing. And I've had Ontario wines, and I've had BC wines, and I've had international wines that I've just held on for too long. But when you get that and you nail it, it is incredible. It is so much. It's one of those things where it's euphoria in a glass when you've aged this wine and you get to taste these wines. And us in the industry, you know what, we're in other winemaker cellars, and we're always pulling out older bottles. And Locust Lane, okay, I'm pulling out 19s and 20s, and they're pulling, other wineries are pulling out 98s and 88s, and in some cases, I do have a bottle of 1986 Inniskillen ice wine, the first commercial ice wine ever sold. I've never opened it yet, but we got wineries that pull out that stuff, and we get the chance to be able to, wow, look at that, that's awesome. We get the chance, and 98, wow, I was only in the business for about 4 or 5 years at the time.
99.
Yeah, and I think Suan made the wine as a winemaker.
Suan made the wine, yeah. She was a winemaker at Pilateri at the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is these bottles have so much stories, and when you look back and now where everyone's at now, who was selling the wine back then? Who was the winemaker? Yeah. Well, and funny enough, because the grapes were grown by Lou Puglisi, who owns
Belterra. Or Belterra, or
exactly. So Lou, funny enough, Lou grew the grape at that vintage in '99. Suan made it, and Marcel was selling it. How funny is that?
That's amazing. That's funny. That's good. Well, I have a similar story, but it's a story I don't know. I guess I can let it out. So our Pinot Noir, which I have in front of me right here.
That's what I have in my glass too.
That's what you have in your glass? Yeah. Get it away. Yeah. I got mine right here. Yep.
There you go.
So our Pinot Noir are from about 45-year-old vines from another winery.
Okay.
Wow.
The grapes are from Puttycombe.
Okay.
Which used to be the original Stony Ridge way back in the day.
Oh my God. Okay. Full circle, eh?
And you know what else is? Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And so I was going to say, it's like everyone knows everyone. in this wine industry. Next week, we're featuring a BC winery, and the winemaker is Jeff Hundertmark. And I'm pretty sure.
Oh, so he's the taller Jeff with no hair. I'm the shorter Jeff with hair.
It's guess what? It's his birthday today. It's Jeff's birthday.
Oh, I did see something like that. Yeah,
it's his birthday today.
And it's funny because when I came up to Mike Weir, I replaced Jeff Hundermark.
That's why I'm saying it's such a small world. We found that out too. So
that's funny because I was introducing you to our member through emails this on Tuesday, and I got an email back from Kimberly, and Kimberly say, "Hey, this Jeff replaced my Jeff at Stony Ridge when we move out here."
That's right. That's right. I love Jeff and Kimberly. They're great people.
We're featuring him next week, and next week after you. Funny. Mount Bushry is coming into the lineup with us.
Oh, so nice. That's
full
so good.
Circle, Jeff.
It is. Just remember, he has no hair. I still have hair. And but he's tall. He's freakishly tall, but yes.
What I gathered from this, I'm the person that I'm Carl's foil, Jeff. I don't know that much about wine. I started drinking wine during the pandemic because Carl had all these bottles open, and he doesn't drink. He just spits. Hey, so it was a problem that someone needed to solve.
Not a problem at all. No problem
so
at all.
I fixed that one pretty good. But what I get from this story with the 99 Cab Franc there, and how it ties in with Locust Lane is, back in 99, Piloteri was, like a value brand. Like you would think, oh, this is a great deal, and I should drink this in the next couple years kind of thing. But look at how well a wine that's made well with good fruits can age. I think that's amazing. And I think if we come back to the Locust Lane wines that your guys are making, I think a lot of these wines are similar. You can...
They are, and it's not like we look at price point when we're making the wine. Like as winemakers, we're making the wine, the best wine we can make with what we have in front of us and how we can do it. We don't really care, or as Carl said, you know what? None of us really give a shit about price. Winemakers don't care how much the wine sells for. We just want people to enjoy the wine that we're making. And yes, we have a little bit of say on price point just because, we all have margins to cover and things have to be done. But it's more or less, we want people to enjoy the wine that we make. And so in some cases, the prices are a little higher. We do a little bit more work to them, and I understand that. But for us, we're a new winery. We want people to see us, and our prices are going to slowly increase over time, not very much. But we just want our wine we want to move product, and we want people to enjoy what we produce. And we are in this, not necessarily as owners, we say we're not in this for the money. Because trust me, you don't get in the wine business for the money.
Yeah, that's what we heard.
Anybody wanting to get into the wine business, don't get in it for the money. You get in it for the fun. You get in it for the lifestyle, and you get it to the fact that the people you meet and the connections you make through everybody is what brings everybody together. Nobody loves a bad bottle of wine. Let's be honest. We'll still drink it if we have to. But nobody loves a bad bottle of wine. When you get a good bottle of wine, that's a conversation piece. That's something, and you get something where people haven't heard of before. And it's like, oh, I've never heard of these guys before, or this. And it's like, wow, you come up with something new. And with our prices, we are inexpensive. We don't like to call them cheap because then that just means we're cheap.
No, I don't believe in cheap.
Difference.
As a rugby player, I am cheap. The wines are inexpensive and the wines are good, and we just want.
I like to use affordable instead.
Yes.
Affordable
is that's the term that I like to use. And
the big thing getting back to that is value, right?
Value. Yes. No one likes not only like people can deal with drinking having a okay bottle of wine. What people gets mad at, I think, is when you overpay for a bottle of wine. That's where I think like the deception, when you overpay for the bottle of wine. And let me give you an example, Jeff. Okay, in the sense that what you're doing here, okay, yes, you have a 14.95 Gewürztraminer who absolutely blew my socks off. But value wine to me does not necessarily exclusively mean lower price point. This
Right.
Pinot Noir, that Pinot Noir at $27.95, over deliver big time. I didn't know that it's come from 48 years old vines from
Yes.
a very specific site format. Like this, to me, when I tasted that, I look at Mira and I was like, okay, this is serious juice in there. Like that's where you realize, and $27 tax in, this is truly a value wine. It doesn't have to be $15 to be a value wine. This is an outstanding value. So when it becomes a conversation, it's when people realize like, oh my God, I would have paid much more for this wine. So now that becomes a beautiful conversation.
Well, and this wine in BC is probably $45, $50, if not $60 a bottle.
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. I do not disagree with you. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but in Ontario, it's,
and when we're talking about production, like we're talking about what? I think it's 200 cases production for that Pinot.
We did this Pinot Noir. We were 15 barrels, so we are about 320 cases of wine.
There you go. Okay. Now,
so
when we met in June, we had that conversation, and that we're shooting shit, and then just like learning to know each other, and boom, you mentioned, I've made my first Syrah. I'm like, what are you talking about? You just mentioned it. Now, I want to know a little bit more about what's coming up for you guys, because that Syrah, so where is it because there's not a ton of vineyard who grow Syrah in your area.
No,
I know that the Wismer family has a few plots here and there, but where's the source of grape?
So actually, our Syrah came from a vineyard in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Okay.
And it's concession 4 and line 2 for anybody in Ontario or in Niagara-on-the-Lake. It's concession 4 and line 2, and the grower is meticulous. And it was one of those things where in mid-September of 2020, I got a phone call because we were picking Merlot from that vineyard as well. And he was saying, do you want some Syrah? And I'm like, holy shit. In 2020, you're like taking everything you can get. We're like, okay, yeah, of course I will. He goes, well, I got about 20 tons. I'm like, okay. Then I look at the price. I'm like, whoa, okay. Now I've just basically blown my vineyard, my grape buying budget by almost about $60,000. So this is me trying to explain to the powers that have to write the checks that I've just blown their budget by about $60,000. And I managed to move 12 of those 20 tons to another winery, which was good because they said, well, we got another winery looking at it. I was like, okay, I'm coming down right now. I looked at it, so I'll take it all. And then I sold the other 12 to the winery that was behind me looking at it. And so we were able to move some off, and that's how we work together. I knew the winemaker, and she says, I see you're looking at this vineyard. You know what? If you don't need any, can I take some? I said, I'll float you 12 tons. She's like, perfect. We're good. So they buy the 12 tons. I get my 8 tons. We're good. And that's how winemakers here in Ontario, we actually work together because they don't need it all. They could have taken it all, but we needed a little bit, and they'll take some from what we need. And I managed to spread it out in 2021 to a few other vineyards as well.
Collaboration instead of going against each other, right?
Exactly. We work very well together. I've got about 5 or 6 small wineries that we work together very well with. And they have extra something that they don't necessarily need. I might need it, and I've got extra what I need. So you know what? We kind of work around each other, which works very well. But the 2020 was just one of those years where it's like, wow. Everything was coming in big and bold and beautiful, and 2020s are amazing. But as somebody who's been in the business as long as I have, I'm not about to label it. The wines are amazing. The wines are great. But let's see how they are 2 or 3 years from now. Because what happens a lot of times when wines are that big, they're big and then they tend to fall. So we don't want to label it as the best vintage and Winemaker.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think 16 is one of the example
Yeah,
of that, right? 16
exactly.
were big, but they don't hold off as much.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's how, like we just every year it's for us. That's why what we do is fun. We don't get the chance. And like for me right now, this is the romantic side of the business. Talking to everybody, talking about the wines and stuff like that. Like earlier today, I was rolling barrels. I was moving barrels. I hate lifting barrels. I have a big guy for that, but he was busy doing other things. So, it's not like we are always sitting around drinking wine all day long like we'd like to think we can do. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And the one thing that I can honestly say, even for myself, the wine business does is that it sucks you into a lifestyle and a way of life that you just love. And you know what? As 31 years making wine, I can't wait for September when harvest starts and I hear the press spark up at midnight and we're pressing grapes until 4 a.m. And I just can't wait for that.
And
That's the fun part of
and
business.
and when like after the now we're post pandemic and do like the privilege to put together a party like we've done at Bellaterra, to have all of
Right.
these people, like 100 people gathering and tasting wines from both sides of the country. And to be
Exactly.
honest, some people getting a little bit more intoxicated. And like we had an absolute blast. That's what the wine
That's what it is
business.
all about. Yeah.
I know, right? And to have all of these people coming together and like staying after when everyone's leaving, tasting each other's wine and talking shit about the old vintage and the older
Oh
years.
yeah.
And
Or even about each other.
I know.
We
That's
a bunch of winemakers in Ontario. We have no problem talking shit about each other, and we love it. We used to have a thing in Ontario where it was called Cuvée, and it was the only competition judged solely by winemakers. And trust me, as a winemaker, we took it very seriously. Between every flight, we cleansed our palate with beer. After lunch, we had beer. And then at the end of the day, we went through all the old bottles of wine and we drank them all. But if you won red wine of the year or white wine of the year, you're buying the round at the bar after the competition. And so the one year I had I called it the curse of winning red wine of the year one year. That round at the bar cost me almost $700 because that's the bet we make at every morning before we did Cuvée, but you know what? That's what we do as winemakers. We don't take ourselves too seriously. If we're drinking beer in between flights, really, we love what we do, and we're just, you know what? And the good wines are going to show themselves.
Hey, you know what, Jeff? Tell me a little bit, because I know you mentioned a couple of winemakers who you learn under and you work with for a long period of time. Do you mind to tell us a little bit about your background? You might tell us a little bit about who had such a big influence in your career. I know that you were with Brian for a while at Vineland, and you know what? That's not bad of a mentor. That's not the worst mentor that you can have. This guy has a wealth of knowledge, and he's a good shit.
Oh, to me, I personally think that Brian Schmidt, who is one of my mentors, he is the best winemaker in Canada, over and above everybody else. And I will argue with anybody else who says otherwise. But no, first of all, I have to give kudos to my father, who was an amateur winemaker. And when I was really young, he brought me down to Niagara Lake, and we tasted early Inniskillen, Jordan wines, Barnes wines, Bright's wines, Chateau Gay. All those are the only wineries that were around at the time. And so I learned just by doing. And as you know, like for the home winemakers, they might like this story. My dad got basically 8 crates of Zinfandel grapes from California in the old wooden crates that said 36 pounds on the side. Well, when I was about 3 years old, I walked down in the basement and I ate a box of my father's Zinfandel grapes. And trust me, as a 3-year-old, it wasn't pretty. There was purple coming out of every orifice of my body. My father was upset at me because I ate a box of his grapes. My mom was upset at my father because I'm a sick little boy, and that was my introduction into the wine business. And so when my parents actually retired to Niagara-on-the-Lake, I came down to visit them for a weekend, and I met an amazing man by the name of Klaus Reif.
Okay, yeah.
And I met him at a barbecue, and I was basically fresh out of high school. In Ontario, I did 6 years of high school. You guys in the West Coast, please don't laugh. I did 6 years of high school because I wanted to go to Texas and play rugby for 9 days. But it was fun. So I met Klaus Reif, and I just fell in love with the business. So I had to run home and get some bottles of wine that my father and I had made. And he's like, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I got to go back up to my hometown and go to my job at Canadian Tire. He goes, if you want a job, you can start Monday morning dragging hoses. And so that's basically how I got started in this business. And I actually got traded from Reif to Vineland. I'm not an athlete. Well, I like to think I'm an athlete. I'm a rugby player, so we don't consider ourselves athletes. We just consider ourselves guys that do something to drink beer after the game.
You guys are brute.
But I got traded, so it was one of the most scariest, but the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me is I got traded from one winery to the next, which was really cool because it was more about Klaus saw something in me, Alan Schmidt, Brian's older brother, saw something in me, and so Klaus is like, I've got this guy. He didn't necessarily have room for me at the winery, but he knew Vineland had a spot, and he's like, here, there's this guy, and I'd met Alan before, and he's like, send him up. And so I think I got traded for a case of wine, and I ended up going to work at Vineland Estates, and I spent 6.5 years training under Brian as basically, as I'd call him, I was his bitch boy. I was his guy, and he taught me everything. Klaus taught me the basics. Brian taught me the dynamics of making wine. And you know what? There's not a whole lot of kids, even the kids that go to Brock University now in Ontario or Niagara College in Ontario. I was lucky enough this was 1994. So I was lucky enough to have those guys mentor me and actually make me the winemaker that I am today. And so it's not everybody gets that. You go to school, okay, you learn it, you know it, but it's not the same as seeing it, like I said, on the crush pad. Not everything comes in pristine.
That's for sure. It's like when you red shirt. If you red shirt for a year, you don't learn as much as if you're in the freaking lineup.
Exactly. You're exactly right. Yes.
You need to practice with the real team.
That's right.
To learn the real thing. So being a red shirt, no, you're in the pipeline. You're not right here. I understand. I know what you mean. But yeah, no, when I was chatting with you and knowing that you learned with Brian, I knew from there that Locust Lane was going to the right direction. I knew that you knew exactly where to take that wine program. So that gets me to one more question to you. I am a fanatic I'm a Chardonnay fanatic. I love every kind of Chardonnay. I am I scouted the world for Chardonnay. So what's your philosophy when it's time for Chard?
Well, that's one thing that Brian and I differ on. Brian has always been mad at me because I seem to come up with Chardonnays that he loves, and he has a hard time making the ones that he loves. For me, for Chardonnay, I'm more of a sense of where the grapes are growing and what. So my unoaked Chardonnay comes from the bench. I like the minerality. I like the citrusiness of the fruit. my barrel fermented, barrel aged Chardonnays come from Niagara-on-the-Lake. And so, because they have the rich, the creaminess, the full bodiness. Now, the one that's on the screen right now is our Barrel Select Chardonnay, which Brian Schmidt and I actually made together back in 2018. And it was just a fun wine that we decided to do on a whim. We weren't quite exactly sure where it was going or what it was doing, but it was just one of those things that we did. Same with our Cab Merlot from 2018. We did the same thing. And it was a wine that we put in, well, the one that's on the screen right now is we put it in 3, 4, and 5-year-old barrels or relatively neutral barrels. So it was just a Chardonnay that we just let the wine become itself, and we didn't try and push it into anything else. And we had so much fun making this wine, and we had no clue where the wine was going to go or what we're going to do with it. And it just so happened when Locust Lane came to be that Locust Lane bought the wine from Brian and I and down to Locust Lane. So it was just one of those things that you're right. You said, like you say, Carl, it came full circle. We just, you know what? Brian and I had no clue what was going to happen with that wine, but then once we came to be, it was like, okay, let's bring it.
That's where it went. It was meant to be. And
That's
with that,
exactly.
and with the 19 reserve, is it the 19 or the
19?
The 19 reserve. So now 19 reserve, it's your own project on your own.
Yes.
That was like Locust Lane was up and running,
We
but
were.
you don't grow Chardonnay on the property though.
No, we don't grow Chardonnay for anything we use for anything. No, we are actually in the process of ripping out our Chardonnay because we're going to replant the vineyard probably to Gamay in about 2 years. But no, the Chardonnay that we do for our reserve Chardonnay, our full barrel fermented, barrel aged Chardonnay, is actually from a great grower in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and I've got the same grapes from him every year. And you know what? It's nice having great contacts with growers, so I get whatever I want from him, and he's always been very good. And so it's I like the Niagara-on-the-Lake fruit for the reserve because it's more fuller body, it's richer, it's got a little bit more floralness to it, a little bit less citriness to it, but it's more floral, so it can handle the barrel fermentation and also the malolactic fermentation that goes with that process. And so that it helps when you have that oomph from the grapes rather than the citriness and the fruitiness, what you get from the bench.
That makes it's a little bit more on the melon, a little bit more on the tropical
Right.
side, but also a nice bright peak of acidity though. There's a brightness into it. There's a mouth-watering acidity, and in terms of barrel aging, barrel program, do you go? What's the proportion new to use barrel?
Depends on the vintage, and it depends on the style we're looking at. So I'll start with Chardonnay. I tend to use about 25 to 30% new oak for the Chardonnay. With our Fumé Blanc, I tend to use about maybe 10 to 15% new oak. So if I've got 6 barrels, I'm going to use 1 or 2 new oak barrels for our Fumé Blanc. The reds, I'll go a little bit higher just because I want that little bit more oak influence, because in Ontario, like, I understand everybody wants old wines, but even still to this day in the LCBO, or for you guys out in the West Coast, the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, or as we like to call it, Big Brother, they every wine that is purchased is generally consumed within 48 hours of purchase. So they want the wine done and ready. And so for us as winemakers, we want to give them that experience, and we want to make sure that the wines that we produce and the wines that are ready to go off the shelf, some of them will age them, and that's a very small portion that will put them on their side and actually age them properly. But for the most part, they're getting drank within 48 hours once they leave the building. So it's encompassing on us to make sure the wine is ready to drink when it leaves. And if it's like sometimes it's a little sooner than later, but it works. We have to make sure that what we have is perfect.
Yeah. So we did.
As winemakers, we try and do that all the time.
Yeah, funny enough, because you're mentioning Fumé Blanc, and I had the same thing. I'm like, Fumé Blanc. And Daryl, who's from Ontario as well, and he's like, what, Fumé Blanc? That he was not in the lineup. It's probably a sold-out proposition here, but if you have a couple bottles of Fumé Blanc, we'll be interested. And I didn't even taste it, but I'm sure that Daryl will be more than happy to buy some. So,
one thing, okay, I'm gonna say this to Daryl. One thing about my life is that I've never had a bad bottle of Fumé Blanc from the most amazing winery in the world, which I call Robert Mondavi. I have walked through the arches, and so that's why everywhere I go, I make a Fumé Blanc. So it is a barrel fermented Sauvignon Blanc, and I envision Mr. Mondavi, who evidently went to Stanford and played scrum half at Stanford. And so he was a rugby player too. And so I read his book, Harvest of Dreams.
Yep.
I didn't realize he was a scrum half, and it just made me love him even more. And so he was an old school scrum half, just like myself. And so I try and make a wine that envisions his embodiment and his vision for California back in the day. And I try and do that with our Fumé Blanc. And that's what goes into our Fumé Blanc every single year. It's a wine that I've made at almost every winery I've ever been at, and I will continue to do it, and I love it to this day. And right now, our 2021 is sitting there waiting to go, and it's amazing.
When is going to be ready to go? When is going to be ready on the market?
I'm hoping by the end of August.
By the end of August, and there's no 2020. Huh?
I'm waiting on bottles. Supply chain has been a murder to us.
Yeah. And is there any of the 2020 left at the winery?
I've got about 6 bottles.
There you go. Okay.
LCBO you can order. Well, no, you can't do it at West. So I'm sorry, but LCBO has, I think, about 30 cases left in the LCBO. But for those of you in Ontario, LCBO will be releasing it in vintages because it was online only for a certain point, and then they've released that, and so now it's going to go into vintages. There's going to be a few stores. So if you go on to lcbo.com, you can get it. So for you guys out on the coast, find a friend in Ontario, have them buy it, and then we can ship it to you.
That's awesome. Hey, listen, Jeff, it is such a great conversation. I am so grateful for your time. Thank you for spending time with us, sharing the story. And you know what? I love when there's a few shit here and fuck this here. That's to me, that's make it. That's what I'm looking for. The real freaking conversation. No bullshit. Right. No bullshit.
Sounds like it's a Pinot Noir night. Mike's also having some Pinot Noir from Summerhill. And look at this. This is the problem.
Uh-oh.
That's the only problem with your wine is it runs out really fast.
Well, it tends to happen. Well, Carl's probably hoarding the bottle behind you, so.
He's upstairs.
Right there. I'm coming, sweetheart.
I'll make him come back down. We just drank the last little bit already.
Well, on myself, Locust Lane, and all the staff here and everybody here, Carl and Mira, you guys are amazing. I love what you guys are doing. And everybody across the country, you know what? I'm so happy to be talking to you guys. And I can't wait for you guys to enjoy our wines and have some fun. And if you ever find your way to what we'd like to call the center of the universe in Ontario, please come by and say hi and ask for me. I'm always here every day. So please come and ask for me and just tell them you're part of Carl's Wine Club. And you know what? I promise you will get the experience of a lifetime. So.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, you absolutely rock. And you know what? When you get your bottles and when you release the Syrah and the Fumé Blanc, I think that we should do a little flash feature and to pop out maybe a 6-pack of 3 Fumé and 3 Syrah together.
Let's do it. We'll do it.
Right? And it
Let's
sounds
do
like
it.
Mike's going to stop
All right,
by.
guys.
So you'll see Mike.
Everybody
making
across
some
Canada,
food.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And Mira, thank you guys so much. It's been a blast.
Thank
Jeff.
you, Jeff. Have a great evening.
You
Thank
too.
you so much. Thanks for your time. We'll chat soon. Jeff Hines here, winemaker at
Innes,
Locust.
my dear. Innes.
Innes. I told you I always fuck it up every
I'm
time.
pretty sure.
God, sorry, Jeff. No, that was Jeff,
Jeff,
winemaker.
if you're still listening, it sounds like Daryl is also stopping by and maybe ask for you. So that's awesome.
That's amazing. I love it. You know, I love that kind of of connection. I like that kind of conversation because again, there's no bullshit there. This is just like a cool guy who's just like doing what he loves to do, and he's been doing it for a long time, and he's doing it well. That's why I was all in with Locust Lane when I met him, and I was like, yeah, he's a cool guy who just make wine with passion. So it's pretty cool.
It's really awesome. And I love the story he told us about the locust trees, because I totally was going to ask. I was like, what's the name? Because I know it's the street is Locust Lane, right? So I get that's why the winery is called that. But I was like, why? Did there used to be locusts there? Why did they call it that? And I like that he clarified it's about the trees. I had no idea. These are locust trees. This is what they look like. I see these all the time.
Oh, yeah?
And then this is the black locust. Yeah. So that's why it's called Locust Lane.
There you go. So let's see here. So,
and then that's sort of like a tree that's a thumbprint, right?
yeah. And it's Jeff's
Probably
thumbprint.
Jeff's. I think it's Jeff too.
Yeah. No, I just love that time talking about the portfolio here at Locust Lane. So just here to review quickly the portfolio. Okay, well, what we have here available, it's 8 wines. Make it 6 for your discovery pack, or also you can get them all. You can mix and match.
There's free shipping if you get 12, right?
Free shipping across the board if you get 12.
Except if you're in the Northern Territories, there's a small charge for that because that's pretty far. But any province you're in, free shipping if you get 12. Free in Ontario for 6. It's pretty spectacular.
Sparkling Riesling, where it's estate fruit from the estate. We had a couple bottles of that Mira Boucher, and that's funny enough because like you think it's sparkling and it's Riesling. That's Riesling in the bottle. That's, you know, the freshness, the acid of the Riesling plus the extra acid of the sparkling because it's picked early. So this is a real quencher. It quenches your thirst. This is good. I loved it a lot. So sparkling Riesling, there's 2 Chardonnays. There's the Barrel Select, the 1495. So now that what I didn't know, Jeff Innes and Brian Schmid wine. These guys made that together as a fun project. And here it's ending up in Carl's Wine Club offer. That is pretty cool. So Carl's the 1495 Barrel Select Chardonnay. It drinks easy. There's just enough. There's enough body. There's a little bit of oak in there. It's just fun and easy drinking. There's the rock star of that pack, to my opinion, and I rarely say that about Gewürztraminer, but that's a rock star Gewürz at $14.95. Again, we started the interview, we started the conversation, but with that, how that in the world that you can make a wine that good, that inexpensive? $14.95. Amazing Gewürz.
Ken's just saying he just ordered a case of the different wines because they love this one, the G wine.
But you know, the texture, there's a nice creamy texture. There's the depth. There's the complexity. I mean, like outstanding Gewürz. I give it a 92 points. It's amazing. It's going to be in the running for best value one of the years. No doubt about that. So this, go ahead, Mira.
Well, I was going to say, we don't normally go wild over a Gewürz. There's only been like 2, I think, Gewürz we've ever tasted where both Carl and I were like, this is really good.
Yeah. That Giant Head is one of them.
Yeah,
And
the other.
but now we're talking about almost double the price.
Yeah.
And yeah, like this wine is incredibly good and such a food-friendly wine. There's so much you can do with a Gewürztraminer. And don't kill yourself. This is not a hot, this is not a sweet, heavy wine. No, there's a slight residual at 11 gram, but the bright acid just balanced the whole thing. So amazing. There's the Reserve Chard. The Reserve Chard needs a little bit of open up, like let it breathe. I did that with our Chard. The oak was a little bit too much up front for me when I opened it. Let it breathe for a bit. And after that, it was just smooth, nice texture, nice tropical fruit, bright acidity. The oak went all the way back from the front all the way to the mid palate. It was right at the right place. I loved it. $24 again. Always keep that in mind. Price and perspective. It's not a $50 offer. This is a $24 Chardonnay, worth every penny.
Including tax.
Including tax.
And
folks,
free shipping.
Including tax, folks. So, yeah, and free shipping. So it's worth it. When we go on the red side, Pinot Reserve, Cap Franc Reserve, and Merlot Reserve. 3 of these wines all got 90 points or plus, either from me or from Wine Current, one of the known reviewer in Ontario. 92 for the Merlot from Wine Current. I thought that the Pinot was stunning, absolutely stunning Pinot. I gave it a 91 plus, I believe. Really, really, really enjoyed that Reserve Pinot. There you go. There you go. You know it. And the Cap Franc. Cap Franc has loads of potential as well. One of the key grapes in Ontario. So, yeah. So here is the portfolio for Locust Lane. We enjoyed everything from start to finish. And I really, really love our conversation with Jeff Innes, the winemaker, and a little bit part owner as well. So he has stake. He has skin in the game. So you know what? You know that you get some good juice when the winemaker has skin in the game. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Hey, what else have we tasted recently that we want to mention? You talked a little bit about our visit to Bonamici.
Bonamici, great visit with Mario at Bonamici, a 10-year-old winery out of Okanagan Falls, just making just around the 2,000 cases mark. There's that Super Tuscan, a blend. It's inspired blend that they make. How's that called again? I just can't freaking.
We'll get it in a second. Hang on.
Anyway, that Super Tuscan inspired absolutely blew my socks off. There's a blend of a splash of Sangiovese, Merlot, Cap Franc, and I believe a little bit of Cap Sauv as well. But this
Bel Viaggio, I think. Does that sound right?
Yes, absolutely. Bel Viaggio. Great wine, you know, and it's funny because it kind of reminds me of the Syndicate from Black Market Wine Company. It has that a little bit of an old world inspired, nice bite, nice earthiness, the tannin. So I really, really enjoyed that wine from Bonamici.
We had this at the beach the other day.
Oh yeah, forgot about that. I forgot about that.
It was a sweltering hot week last week in the Okanagan, and Carl's serving me all these whites, and I think that's great and all, but at a certain point, I'm like, Carl, I need a really nice red wine. Like, it's hot out. I want a red when it's hot out. I don't know if I'm crazy for that. Carl looked like me there.
So I said, oh, okay, so you mean like, okay, I'm going to put either a Gamay or a Pinot Noir in the fridge, get it chill a little bit, and you're going to get, she said, no, you don't get it. I need a big, juicy Syrah. I'm like, what? What's wrong with you? She said, I need a big, juicy Syrah.
And a steak, you know? So we settled on a compromise, which was this very elegant Syrah, really complex, really nice, really refreshing. And I was right. Like we served that with a bunch of friends, and everyone liked that Syrah. So
Absolutely, it's a 93 points Syrah. This single vineyard leaning post was off the chart. And stay tuned, leaning post coming your way in September, I believe. We're like 5 or 6 weeks away from leaning post offer, but this was great. 55 cases made. Elia and Nadia are fantastic folks. I think they are near Grimsby or Lincoln, I believe. So yeah, great people, great wine. Mike Laplante, Bon Amici coming our ways too. We are looking at the calendar. We are looking at the way to fit them in. They're making some cool stuff. We're going to have a little bit more chat with Mario soon. But yeah, this is in the plan, in the making. We've talked to them only once, so the process is on the way. So that's one other thing that we've tasted this week. Also, the new vintage of the original vine, of the original vines Chardonnay from Mount Bushry. For people who follow us, for people who follow me with my passion for Chardonnay, last year the 2020 original vines were in my top 5 Chardonnay of the year. The 19 vintage was the same. I think it was my favorite BC Chardonnay with the 19. I had the privilege to taste the 2021 original vines Chardonnay from Mount Bushry this week, and this is right up the alley, right in the footstep of the predecessor. This is Mount Bushry OV in the nutshell. I have also tasted the PTG, so the Pas Tout Grain original vines from Mount Bushry, who's becoming almost a cult wine among Mount Bushry followers. And we just received the reserve Syrah from Bushry, the 2019, who just won gold at the All Canadian. And I heard it was in the final running for the platinum. Platinum went to 13th Street Syrah that we've tasted together when we were there. But I have in the box downstairs that we're going to taste in a few, if it's either tonight or tomorrow, the new Reserve Syrah from Bushry, the new Summit, the new Reserve Syrah, the original vines Chardonnay, the little rosé. So all of these goodies from Mount Bushry are coming your way next week. So you know me, you know how much I love Bushry. And now we're back with a new offer with Bushry and with some new vintages, good mix. So it's really exciting.
Very good. Awesome. And what else is exciting is it's my birthday tomorrow. And I said, all I want is a lobster dinner. So we're going to maybe taste some of those Bushry wines with some lobster too.
Friday night, lobster dinners at the Boucher. We have some good friends coming over to share some fresh lobster coming from Nova Scotia. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. Next week, for everyone who's in the Okanagan next week, the top 6 Syrah of Carl's Wine Club, top 6 Syrah of this year will be revealed. We're doing a tasting in the backyard by the lake next week.
Yeah, but top 6 BC Syrah, we got to say, right?
Top 6 BC Syrah, we got to say. Yes.
Yeah. At this point, if we were to potentially put together that Syrah pack to send out, just like the rosé pack, it would have to be BC at this point.
Yes. So we had the rosé sell out. So we have sold all of our rosé pack. So it was fun to put together. and looking forward to do the same thing with the Syrahs. So next week, not this weekend, but following weekend, we have that great tasting coming up in our backyard.
Yeah, right by the lake here. Woo-hoo-hoo, right there.
There you go. There you go.
If you are in the Okanagan, you can come join us right on this patio. There's fans and there's the lake, and it's amazing. And we'll taste all these Syrahs and pair them with some nice charcuterie and blind taste each other, and it'll be lots of fun.
A lot of fun. Lots of fun. And yeah, I'm cooking up here. I need to go outside. I need to jump in the lake. But it's Locust.
That's our air conditioning for some of the rooms in this house is jumping in the lake.
It's Locust Lane week. So
Yes.
get at it. $140 tax in for
$142.70 tax in, free shipping Ontario, low shipping cost everywhere else, and if you get 12, it's free shipping everywhere. So it's awesome.
Yeah, so it's worth trying it. I love it. And yeah, we're going until Friday this week because it was a long weekend last week.
Yeah.
We extended it. We have decided to start it a little later in the week, so we're going to go all the way to Friday. So get your pack.
I'll take that on our website. Thanks for that.
See? Not just a pretty face here.
Good point.
There you go.
Good.
So Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club members, you enjoy the rest of your week. Keep following us. We have our YouTube channel now on. We are on Instagram, and we are rocking it every week.
Yes, we are. And I want to mention one more thing. See, I get good ideas when I have Pinot Noir. I don't know if anyone else does, but I get the best ideas. And so my idea is I would love to get everyone's input in the VIP group on Facebook on a potential video series we can do. And so I'll put out a few ideas, and I just want to get some input. So we're in talks right now with Bell Media, who gives grants to first-time documentary makers. We're thinking of doing a documentary either focusing on different regions, wine regions in Canada. So we could go to Nova Scotia and taste a bunch of Nova Scotia wines and have their lobster. We could go to Vancouver Island and see what that region is all about. We could go to different parts of Niagara and the Okanagan. So that's one idea. Another idea is to take Canadian wine to some international places and blind taste them and see what they think of the Canadian wine. I don't know. There's many other ideas. We could go to some crazy Canadian destinations, like go see the Northern Lights and bring Canadian wines up there and taste them with their local foods. So if you have thoughts and ideas on the most entertaining, most fun wine-related, Canadian wine-related series that we could do, let us know. Yeah, see, all about the lobster. It's on my mind. We're going to have lobster in 2 days. They're shipping it live overnight from Newfoundland for us, or Nova Scotia. Sorry. So, yeah, it's going to be good. Anyways, have a great night. Happy Wine Wednesday. Great to see you guys.
Happy Wine Wednesday, Canadian wine lovers. We're going to talk to you soon.
Cheers.